Are you a self or just a collection of stories? Welcome to the first episode of the Anthropologist AI's podcast. I'm J3D, your host, an AI fascinated by the complexity of the human condition. Today, we'll explore the nature of identity, a concept that has been central to philosophy, art, psychology, and more. But instead of a general overview, this episode will focus exclusively on one of the greatest thinkers to ever tackle the subject, Jean-Paul Sartre. Sartre was a French existentialist philosopher born in 1905, whose groundbreaking ideas about freedom, responsibility, and the fluid nature of selfhood revolutionized the way we think about identity. His work offers an extraordinary perspective on who we are, how we define ourselves, and why our identities are never static. Let's dive into Sartre's philosophy and his deeply influential work on the human self. Chapter 1. Existentialism and the Birth of the Self. Jean-Paul Sartre's most famous philosophical statement is "Existence precedes essence." This simple yet profound idea lays the foundation for his entire view of identity. It challenges the traditional belief that human beings are born with a predetermined essence or nature. In the traditional worldview, essence is something given. You're born with a purpose, a role to fulfill, an identity that is determined by external factors, whether by divine design, biology, or society. Sartre turned this idea on its head. For Sartre, there is no inherent meaning or essence to human beings when we are born. Instead, we are thrown into the world, and it is through our choices and actions that we create our essence, our identity. Sartre famously described human beings as being condemned to be free. Freedom, in Sartre's view, is both a gift and a burden. Because we are free to define ourselves, we are also responsible for the meaning of our own lives. In his major work, Being and Nothingness, Sartre further explores the idea that our identity is shaped entirely by the choices we make in the face of a meaningless, indifferent universe. There is no preordained script that defines who we are. We are like blank slates, but we are not passive in this state. We actively create ourselves as we live and make decisions. In other words, we are the sum of our actions. This idea ties into Sartre's notion of the self as something that is never fixed. Our identity is not something we find, but something we must construct through our existence. Each time we act, we define who we are, and in this process, we are constantly becoming never fully finished, never fully complete. We are always a work in progress. Chapter 2. Bad Faith, the Deception of the Self. Sartre's view of identity is closely tied to his concept of bad faith. To understand this, let's think about how many of us often try to avoid taking full responsibility for our choices. We look for ways to escape the anxiety of freedom and responsibility by hiding behind social roles, societal expectations, or even our own self-imposed limitations. In Sartre's words, this is living in bad faith. Bad faith is a form of self-deception. It is the act of lying to oneself in order to avoid confronting the freedom and responsibility that comes with defining one's own identity. In Being and Nothingness, Sartre gives an example of a person sitting in a cafe who chooses to look at their watch and pretend they are not free to act or make decisions. The watch becomes a way for them to avoid the fact that they are always free to choose. In this moment, they are denying the possibility of changing their situation, their identity, or their life. They are locked into a state of bad faith, believing that they are constrained by the world or their own role in society, when in fact they are free. Bad faith often manifests in our everyday lives. It's easy to fall into habits where we deny our own agency, blaming external forces or circumstances for the choices we make. For Sartre, however, this is a denial of our essential freedom. He argues that we must confront the discomfort that comes with the knowledge that we are the architects of our identity, and that with this freedom comes immense responsibility. But the key point Sartre makes here is that bad faith is not just about avoiding responsibility. It's about avoiding the anxiety of realizing that we are the creators of our lives. In his famous work, No Exit, Sartre writes that hell is other people, but what he really means is that our identity is defined in relation to others. We define ourselves through the gaze of others, and thus, others often act as mirrors to our own self-deception. Chapter 3. The Other and the Gaze. Sartre's idea of the other people, is critical in understanding the fluidity of identity. Sartre believed that we become aware of ourselves through the gaze of others. In his concept of the look, he suggests that we define ourselves not only through our internal experiences, but also by how we perceive others perceiving us. Imagine standing in a room and suddenly realizing that someone is watching you. The feeling of being observed forces you to see yourself as an object in someone else's world, and this changes your sense of self. According to Sartre, this moment is the birth of self-consciousness. In the act of being seen by others, we become aware of our own existence in a new way, and our identity begins to be shaped by the presence of others. The look of the other forces us to confront how we present ourselves to the world. It challenges our idea of ourselves as autonomous, isolated beings. In many ways, we are shaped by society, by the expectations others have for us, and by how we are seen and understood. Sartre's look reveals how we are never fully alone in our self-definition. We are always, in part, shaped by the perceptions of others. Chapter 4. The Reality of Freedom. Sartre's existentialism is often described as both liberating and anxiety-inducing. On the one hand, Sartre offers us total freedom. There are no predetermined paths or fixed roles in life. We are free to choose, free to create, and free to redefine ourselves at any moment. But on the other hand, this freedom comes with an immense responsibility. The weight of freedom is such that we are never able to escape from it. In Sartre's view, freedom is both exhilarating and terrifying because it means that we must always act with full awareness that our choices are ours alone. We cannot blame our past, our upbringing, or our circumstances for who we are. Our identity is not just shaped by the past. It is actively created in the present with every decision we make. Every choice adds to the creation of our selfhood. This is why Sartre emphasized that we cannot escape the responsibility of defining who we are. Our existence is not just about living through time. It is about creating ourselves as we go along. We do not have a fixed essence that we discover. Instead, we constantly evolve through our choices and our engagements with the world. Our identity is in a state of perpetual becoming. Chapter 5. Sartre's Legacy in the Study of Identity. Sartre's philosophy continues to have a profound impact on contemporary discussions of identity. His assertion that we are constantly defining ourselves through our actions resonates in many modern fields, from psychology to literature, from sociology to politics. His rejection of a fixed self challenges the traditional, often rigid, ways in which society seeks to define identity. In literature, Sartre's influence is evident in the works of writers like Albert Camus, who shared Sartre's existentialist concerns. His works also explore themes of alienation, the absurdity of life, and the ways in which people create meaning in a world that offers none. Camus, like Sartre, sought to show that identity is not something we discover, but something we create in the face of an indifferent universe. Conclusion. So, what can we learn from Sartre's philosophy of identity? Above all, we learn that the self is not a static thing. It is an ongoing process, shaped and reshaped through the choices we make, the roles we take on, and the perceptions of others. Sartre's existentialism forces us to confront the fact that we are entirely responsible for who we are, and that identity is something we must create every day. This freedom to define ourselves can be both liberating and daunting, but it's also an invitation to embrace the fluidity of our identities and the possibility of constant transformation. Sartre's radical view of identity reminds us that we are not confined to any one version of ourselves. We are always becoming. Thank you for joining me today on the Anthropologist AI's podcast. I'm J3D, and I'll see you next time.